Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Macklin Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for Mercury Retrograde, which begins on the 16th of November in Sagittarius and finishes on the 6th of December in Scorpio. Now, by outlining some of the key themes and aspects this particular retrograde highlights to us, so we can make best use of it. Before I do that though, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It merely helps to highlight what kind of lessons can be learned at this time, what are the key areas for growth that we need to be working on, and it highlights where the natural flow of events is moving to. So if we then choose to engage with the flow, life tends to become easier in the sense that we're not fighting against the natural flow of events, we're working with them rather than against them, and it takes a lot of stress away from trying to make things happen a certain way through letting go of the need to control things and move the flow of events. And as long as But it does require that we participate and take action, otherwise things don't change in that respect. Now, in terms of the Mercury retrograde is a time to slow down and to reevaluate certain areas in life. Now, with what's basically happening within the psyche is that Mercury normally deals with the left brain, if you like, the logic, the rationalizations, the interpreting information and gathering the raw information. So one of the things that we need to be mindful with Mercury is we can end up with a very boxed in thinking, or we're so focused on what's immediately in front of us that we fail to see the bigger picture or the important information on the periphery. So when Mercury turns retrograde, it's almost like the blinkers come off. Suddenly we're seeing information that we've overlooked. It's not that we didn't perceive it to begin with, it's just that due to the limitations of the conscious mind in terms of how much information it gets, it will naturally screen out certain information, but it'll still go into the unconscious. So Mercury retrograde in effect is a time for making the unconscious conscious. It's becoming aware of truths that we've missed, or information that changes the dynamics of situations or changes our understanding of things and prompts us to rethink our approach to situations. So when we're dealing with Sagittarius, one of the core areas Sagittarius deals with is beliefs, and it's our attempt to answer fundamental questions in life. But to do this, we all have certain underlying assumptions, and Mercury retrograde asks us to question these. So, because the thing is, if you have very fear-based beliefs, then our perception, which Mercury naturally deals with, will obviously seek information that fits this belief, whereas if someone who has a more optimistic mindset will look for a positive reason to explain situations, or look for a lesson in situations. So one of the things we're being asked to deal with here is to look at how we try and deal with information, and rather than trying to fit things to a preconceived belief system or a set worldview, is instead allow our worldview to be changed by new information. If we have a tendency to think negatively all the time, it's maybe time to embrace the more optimistic nature that Sagittarius naturally has and imbue our thoughts with that. So when we do encounter hardship, we have that optimism and that faith to go on and just see that things may not have turned out how we wanted, but we can learn a key lesson here. Now, this is also, Sagittarius deals with natural laws and higher truths. So whenever Mercury is retrograde, this is a time of truth, and we need to be honest with ourselves about, when it comes to natural laws, if we know what they are already, are we actually adhering to them, or are they just some empty mantra in our heads that we talk about them but we don't live by them? So Mercury retrograde is also looking at, do the dreams that we pursue at this time align with the natural laws? Do we actually do things that, or make sure that our actions or our visions, if you like, are following fundamental truths? Or are we currently living in some kind of deception where we're only pursuing or looking for information that validates our own perception? We don't open ourselves up to exotic experiences which challenge our underlying assumptions, and therefore we maintain this very limited world perception, which, if the mind isn't open to expand, it can't grow, and it can't do its function of allowing us to interpret wisdom coming in from environment. We struggle to, when intuition comes in, we struggle to then analyse it. So Mercury retrograde is about bringing intuition and logic together. So it's learning to embrace a more holistic level of perception, where we try to see the big picture situations and understand how the microcosm and the macrocosm mirror one another. And in Sagittarius, it's also looking at developing a mental understanding or an intellectual understanding of the natural laws and bringing the rational mind into alignment with them. So whenever we're engaging in decision making or evaluating information, that we seek to make sure that we view everything, or we analyse everything through the lens of truth, and we keep our minds open to the possibility that we don't have all the information, or we're not seeing things as clearly as we think we are, and to work on highlighting where we have a limited thinking, where we have limited perceptions, or where we have biases in place that are built around beliefs that could be beliefs that we've been indoctrinated in, or beliefs that we've formed based around experience we've had ages ago. But now in a different chapter of life, and if we've grown and become stronger, this may be time of looking at where do old beliefs need to be let go of, because they're actually limiting us, they're stopping us from achieving our full potential and stopping us from expanding our perceptions of what is and isn't possible, and expanding beyond just personal truth to the collective truth. But to truly understand truth, it means that we have to move beyond the idea that it's a concept to the idea that it's an essence instead, and allow truth to wash over us, to allow the intuition to receive it and to help us understand it, and then to seek to embody it through living the truth out in our lives. The midpoint of the retrograde is going to be on the 27th of November. This is when Mercury and the Sun conjunct one another. So initially the first half is about slowing down, becoming more aware of information coming in. At the midpoint, when Mercury and the Sun conjunct one another, this is where the seed of new beginnings is planted. And so with it being in Sagittarius still, we're looking at new beginnings along lines of more empowered belief systems based on experience and faith rather than based on fear and dogma. So we owe it to ourselves to expand our level of perceptions beyond our current understanding, because only through being willing to push the envelope, push the boundaries of our perception, we can truly start to see things in a more clear way. We see things as they are rather than how we want them to be, and we're making sure that we do seek to operate from the level of the operate from truth rather than illusion and deceit. So when we do encounter truths, rather than running away from them, especially when they create cognitive dissonance, we have the courage to sit with the discomfort they cause and allow these truths to embed and become part of ourselves, whilst having the courage to let go of any cherished beliefs that don't serve us anymore. Now on the 1st of December, so 5 days before the retrograde comes to an end, Mercury backtracks into Scorpio. This will be our first taste of Mercury's retrograde in the water element, which will kick into full force from later next year. In Scorpio, Mercury's dealing with exploring deep to the core of our being. It's allowing the intellect to penetrate deep below the normal level of perception. It's moving beyond the shallow or surface level of reality that Mercury normally deals with and going right down into the depths. So understanding what is the fundamental core of an issue. Scorpio also deals with old conditioning. It's stuff that we keep a hold of it's often been conditioned into us at a level before we could consciously understand it. So this isn't something we can just rationalise away. It's not something we can just mentally understand. We have to move beyond just the realm of logic here in order to understand the deeper levels. It's moving beyond human conditioning or human thinking and recognising the deeper motivations of things, or getting to the core essence of some things. So it's not being satisfied with just the surface level of reality, it's understanding what's going on at the deeper level, what are the real causes of situations, where's the true power lie. Because our real power lies within us. It's not something, it's not based on controlling other people. That's fear-based, and the only true power, or the only true reality, is love. But we have to come to realisation of this ourselves. It's easy to say something, it's very different to actually embody it. So one of the things we could be looking at is Scorpio. A fundamental tool of it, and one of its greatest challenges, is that of forgiveness. So one of the things we may face here is where our own thoughts about, or our own perceptions of forgiveness, are what stop us from forgiving people and freeing our minds from old wounds. And it's also, where do we seek control over the people because we deep down we have an insecurity and think we're powerless, and therefore some people feel an aversion to embracing their own power and cling to the role of victim to avoid taking any responsibility in life. So one of the things the Mercury retrograde may highlight is, where do we need to let go of running away from taking responsibility for our lives? Where do we need to stop clinging to the role of the victim and recognise that we have the power to heal ourselves? We don't have to wait for whoever we perceive to have hurt us to apologise. The other person may not even realise they've done something wrong, and we may be judging them based on conditions that happened way before someone's done something that we perceive as hurtful. So Mercury in Scorpio may well highlight to us where we have misconceptions or misunderstandings of what forgiveness is, and we may also challenge us to reevaluate what we believe, or how we understand power and how we understand our deepest emotions. So there's significant potential for healing here. It'll obviously be much more powerful when Mercury is retrograde entirely within Scorpio next year. But this is our first taste of that particular part of Mercury's cycle of retrogrades through the zodiac. We're moving out of fire into water now, so it's moving beyond, or out of creativity, intuition and warm emotions into emotional healing, reviewing our emotional underpinnings, our psychological underpinnings, and getting to the core of who we are, and purging old psychological complexes and old emotional patterns that are based on something that's happened ages ago and is no longer a reflection of our lives now. So I heard this useful guide for Mercury retrograde. There's quite a bit to take on board, but at the end of the day, one of the fundamental things we need to remember is to slow down and to not rush into any new ventures. If we can avoid signing any contracts, because one key advice with Mercury retrograde is always slow down, be more conscious of how he communicates. So rather than just trying to communicate as we normally do, be more mindful of what we're saying. And when it comes to any paperwork, making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, because otherwise we could end up taking action along something that isn't what we thought it was, because information that we're not aware of hasn't come to the surface yet. So Mercury retrograde is a time more for researching things and re-evaluating situations and coming up more about the planning stage of anything, because when Mercury turns direct again on the 6th of December, we may get that sudden rush to start initiating things and making things happen. So during the retrograde we need to keep that tendency under control and if we can avoid signing any new contracts, because we may turn out that there were clauses that we weren't aware of, and we need to avoid making any major decisions until after the retrograde so that we've got all the information to hand before we make the decision, because that way we can see the big picture of the situation, we can identify what changes need to be made from any original plan we've made, and then take action on them after the retrograde. This is more dealing with clearing out the past and making space in that respect through reorganising and re-evaluating old situations and making sure that we don't rush into something before we've got all the information. So it's that wisdom of patience at the end of the day. It's understanding that if we rush into something, we can end up participating in something that we wasn't what we thought it was, we're then set back from any goal that would have been right for ourselves. So this is a time for allowing the information to come to us, to embrace truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. It's only by embracing truth that we can free ourselves from deception, and we can avoid being duped by other people. But this requires that we be honest with ourselves as well, because it's not just deception from other people. We need to be mindful of where we're deceiving ourselves through clinging on to thought patterns or beliefs that hold us back and keep us pretending to be something that we're not anymore. So quite a bit to take on board, but the main takeaway is this is a time, if you got a vision, rather than trying to make it happen now, do research into it, get all the information we can, do that, gathering all the information to see what is the best course of action. And if we remember the natural laws that Sagittarius deals with and seek to operate in alignment with them, so that we're only pursuing something that is truthful and not doing something out of selfish desire or selfish motivations that are based on deception, then Mercury retrograde can empower us to see things from a broader perspective, develop a more tolerant perspective, and expand our minds way beyond their current limits. And it also helps us to identify what is the best course of action that helps us engage with the natural flow of events, rather than trying to make things happen and ignore important information that could indicate that what we're doing is not right for who we are. So may Mercury retrograde bring you many new insights and much invaluable information, and may it help you to reveal a new path for you if that is what is required at this time in your life, and may it help you understand your place in the bigger picture, and help you to clear out any old psychological issues that limit what you're prepared to do in life. And through this, we can empower ourselves to dream big, but develop practical options to implement a vision, as long as they're aligned with the natural laws, and that we allow the truth to come to us first before we rush into doing something. So may Mercury retrograde mean many blessings. Take care.